Hey, you guys. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I've just had some issues with getting live. Hear me? Please do let me know if you're watching and that you can hear me all right. I'm going to crack on though because I have something really, really exciting that I want to chat to you about today. Now, as you might have seen, I'm going to do a little series on stress this month because more so the upside of stress, all right? Because there's a lot of misconception out there, and there's just some really, really incredible research which shows us some really interesting things about the way we can get good at stress. All right, so today I'm just here to chat to you a little bit about why not all stress is bad. All right, so what if I told you that? What if I told you that not all stress is bad and that stress itself can actually be good and can be beneficial to our health? Now, I know that might go against a large amount of what you hear in the media and even by practitioners, but I challenge you to keep an open mind and keep listening. Let me know your thoughts on this as we go through. Do you think that all stress is bad, or do you think that it can be beneficial? Also, what if I told you if the way that you think about stress and the way that you respond to stressful events can actually change your physiology? It can change the way your body actually reacts on a hormonal level in terms of what hormones the body produces and whether they are more health promoting or not. So I hope you'll agree with me that's a pretty damn intriguing thought, all right? And these aren't just what ifs, they are things that have been proved by science. So I'm going to just chat a little bit about that today. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because even I am guilty often of lumping stress in this bad category, right? And perhaps focusing a bit too much on the negative effects of stress. And it's because we just hear it so much through media outlets and all these people who want to sell you something to reduce your stress, right? We hear it all the time. Stress is bad. Stress is, you've got to avoid stress. You've got to reduce stress. Stress kills. But the science actually shows something quite different. The studies show that the presence of stress itself, or stressful events, I'm going to say stressful events, themselves are not actually what contributes to poorer health. The science shows that those negative effects of stress that we see on our body and our health likely has more to do with the way that we perceive and respond to certain events rather than the actual event itself. So you can probably see this in some examples that you might have come across in people or stories that you might have heard. People that have had an awful lot of adversity in their life and an awful lot of stressful events, and yet they just seem to remain happy, they remain healthy, they seem bulletproof to all of these stressful events that happen one thing after the other, and they have this still positive outlook on their life. They bounce back and they build off those events, and those stressful events and what we would often consider devastating events just make them stronger and make them better. And then conversely, you might see some people who are always stressed, and you might resonate with this yourself. The smallest things stress them out. They don't seem good at coping with stressful events. They're constantly taking days off work, or they're sick, or they're needing time out to recover because they're overwhelmed and they're stressed all the time, and their health is negatively affected by it. Their sleep suffers, their immune system suffers, and then that stresses them out more, and they tend to go on this downward spiral, right? And if some of you resonate with that, I know I have most certainly at many points in my life. I have found myself in that downward spiral. Stress makes me sick, being sick makes me stressed. And perhaps right now with everything that's going on in the world, stress might be feeling really heavy for you right now, and your health and your well-being might be negatively affected now by some of these stressful events and things that are going on in your life, which then causes more stress. So I'm going to talk in another session about how to kind of break that chain and get out of these spirals and why these spirals occur in terms of actual neuroscience and brain health. But for now, what I want you to know and what I want you to embrace is that the great news is that you have the power to change those outcomes from right now, right? So the health outcomes, the psychological outcomes of these stressful events, you have the power, you have everything within you right now to change those effects, to change the way that those events, even the ones that you have no control over, like COVID, you still have the power within you to change the way those events affect your body on a hormonal and cellular level, purely by the way that you choose to perceive that stress and the way that you respond to it and react to it. And some of you might be thinking that this is a little bit like spiritual or a little bit sort of, woo-woo, but there is science. Let me tell you, there is science. And there is very real science to show that the way that we think and our mindset around stressful events is actually what results in the certain outcomes. And I'm going to come to that in a little bit as well. So an example of this is mostly we think that stress is bad because we've been conditioned to think this way, right? We've been told that it's bad. We've been told that being stressed out is bad and something that we need to avoid, or something that we need to, recover from or treat ourselves from. If we've had a stressful day, we deserve something in return, right? So there's this kind of stress is a problem that we need to get rid of, is what society tells us. So we think that it's bad, when in fact stress can have very, very important functions in our body, and we wouldn't have got to where we are today as humans, as a race, as a mammal, as a being, without stress, right? Without being able to adapt and learn and grow from the stresses that we've encountered. And one way of kind of illustrating this is exercise, right? Because most of us are aware that physical fitness is associated with better health. And in order to improve our physical fitness, we need to exercise more, right? We need to exercise, and we need to not just do the same amount of exercise, but we actually need to increase our exercise level because our fitness adapts. So what we're actually doing there is we're putting our bodies under physical stress and emotional stress and psychological stress sometimes. We don't get fitter physically by avoiding the level of activity that stresses the body, right? You don't grow bigger muscles or build bigger muscles by going to the gym and lifting a really light weight that for you is super easy, you can do for hours, and is not difficult at all, right? That does not make us fitter or stronger, and we know that. So instead we go to the gym and we lift weights that are heavier, right? That are more difficult for you, because that's what makes you stronger and fitter, and you know that getting stronger and fitter is what is good for your health in the long run. So what's actually happening there is you're stressing your body out, right? Just a little bit, just enough. Lifting something heavy slightly damages your muscles, right? It's actually causing tears in those muscles. But it's in that repair process afterwards, it's in the way that your body is adapting to that damage, that the muscle adapts and gets stronger and gets better able to lift that weight in the future. And then you're going to need to do more lifting, heavier weights, in order to stress that body, those muscles more, because they adapt. And because we've been told exercise is good, we accept the fact that our heart races, that we feel out of breath, that we sweat like crazy, that we damage our muscles, we tear our muscles, we're causing physical damage, and because of that we have sore muscles afterwards and we're exhausted afterwards. But because we know it's exercise and we know it's making us fitter, then we accept that and we're okay with that level of stress. That's what we've told ourselves, and that's what we've been told. But when we put those same symptoms and same events into a different scenario, then we're conditioned to go, oh my God, no, that's stress, that's bad, because it's in this box, right? Where our heart's racing, we're short of breath, we're sweating like crazy because of a deadline at work or because someone's just been mean to us. And suddenly that's stress and that's bad because it's happening in this kind of context. But in this context, it's fine. When actually for the body, they're not very different things. So it's this perception that we have of stress and what's okay and what's not that tends to result in the outcomes that we're used to from those different scenarios. So we can then apply, the same principle of exercise to stress in other forms, right? So we don't want to eliminate stress. We don't want to avoid it at all costs because that's not really helping us. That's not helping us adapt, learn, grow bigger psychological stress muscles, right? We don't get any better at dealing with stress in difficult situations, and we don't learn and grow both physically and mentally by avoiding stress entirely. If we avoid those situations, then we're denying ourselves that ability to adapt and grow and benefit from it. And we actually make it harder and harder for ourselves to cope each time something crops up. Imagine going to the gym and just lifting really, really light weights, but then every now and then someone throws you a heavy weight. You're actually less adapted to carry that heavy weight than if you regularly increased the level of weight that you were lifting so you could deal with that level when someone threw that heavy weight at you, right? And it's the same with stress. If we protect ourselves too much, we wrap ourselves in cotton wool, and we think of stress as something to be avoided, we're not good at coping and at dealing, and we don't have the skills to deal with the situations when those stressful events do arise. And that's what's happening more and more often, is we're being able to avoid those stressful situations. And all that's doing is it's actually making us less able to cope with stress. It's making us less adapted. And a lot of our stress these days is that psychological stress, right? It's things that are likely going to be there forever. It's part of our everyday life. It's paying bills, it's deadlines at work, it's parenting children, it's relationships and dealing with conflict and difficult discussions, right? These are things that are actually just part of life. They're just part of being a human and living in society. These activities themselves aren't inherently stressful activities. They're just stuff. They're just part of life. You can't live in the society that we're in and have relationships and have a job without having those sorts of stresses. It's just part of life. But the more that we think of them as stress, the more that they become stress, right? And it's our mindset towards these things and our response to these activities that tend to make them more stressful. So we're making our lives more stressful by picking activities and labeling them as stressful. So there's this whole mindset component, right? And studies have been done on this. So this isn't just kind of something that, would be nice to think. We can just think differently and everything will be fine. But studies have actually been done where participants are split into two groups. One is told that a certain activity that they're going to be exposed to, which was like a grueling job interview, a really stressful, hard job interview. One group is told that that job interview is actually, the stress is going to be beneficial for them, and they're told about all these amazing benefits that stress has on the body and how it actually helps them become healthier and more robust and more resilient. The other group is told that it's going to be stressful and that stress is damaging to their health. When those two groups go through that stressful event, they were measured for their hormones in their urine, so their stress hormones. And the two groups actually differed in a way that their bodies produced hormones in different amounts, depending on whether they thought stress was good for them or they thought that stress was bad for them. So just being told that the upcoming stress was going to be good for them rather than be bad for them actually changed the way their bodies responded, their cells responded, changed the hormones that their bodies produced. How incredible is that? Like, it just blows me away every time I talk about this with people, because just by changing our perception and by opening ourselves up to the idea that stress is good for us, we can actually make it good for us, right? We can make our bodies change the way that they respond to that stress and produce more of the beneficial hormones and less of the detrimental hormones just by thinking about it. We can turn that stress into something that builds robust, resilient bodies and brains and minds to, grow stronger and healthier. And it all just starts with our mindset and our perception about what that stressful event is doing to our bodies. So when media and society and practitioners kind of tell you that stress is bad, and that this stress is bad, this stress is bad, stress is killing you, stress is damaging your brain, by buying into that, you're making a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You are perpetuating that. You are making that a reality. Whereas if we can change our mindset and shift into thinking that those stresses are going to be beneficial for us, in turn, they will be more likely to actually be beneficial for us on a cellular level, and will more likely enhance our resilience and our body functioning than harm it. And that to me is just incredible, absolutely incredible. And it's something that we just fall into this trap too often. And I love coming in here and reminding you guys regularly that that simple mindset shift can actually change the way your body functions, because it is so, so important, and it is so, so easy once you learn the right skills, right? So over the next couple of weeks, this is going to be a little series, this upside of stress. I want to focus on the benefits of stress, the upside of stress, what the stress is doing to us in a positive way, how we can get really good at coping with stress and make it benefit us rather than harm us, and just how we can learn to adjust the way that we think about stress in general, to kind of build this upward spiral rather than a downward spiral, right? And there's a lot of it that has to do with other stuff going on in our body and the way that that impacts our brain functioning. And I'm going to come to that in another lesson about the different parts of the brain that are activated and what sort of needs to happen in order to make stress more beneficial rather than more harmful, and make you better at dealing with stress as well. And I'm also going to talk about the different stress responses, because one of the reasons that we think stress is bad is because we think that there's just one response, that there's just this fight or flight response from caveman times, and that's all there is. And that's damaging all the time, right? But that isn't the case. There are different stress responses, and we can learn from those different responses, and learn how to maximize them to benefit ourselves, both on a psychological and a physiological level. I'm going to be sharing lots of examples, lots more research, and most importantly, of course, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can learn from these and what we can actually implement in our daily lives from the science in order to make us better at stress and make stress more beneficial for us rather than harmful. All right, so for today though, I just want you to be open to the fact that stress can be positive, stress can be beneficial. And I want you to think about the most recent stressful event, the last time that you felt stress. And I want you to think, if you can reframe that and find a positive in it, what did that stress give you? Did it give you the opportunity to learn something about yourself? Did it give you the opportunity to know that you can handle that kind of stress, right? That you can get through it and you'll survive? Did it give you some new coping skills, or did it give you a strengthened bond with your partner after that stressful argument because you came to a conclusion? What was that stressful event, and what's one little positive, one tiny little positive thing that you can take from that stressful event? That's the one thing that I want you to do for today after listening to this upside of stress, part one. I don't know how many parts there are going to be. I'm just going to roll with it until I feel like we've covered an awful lot of the stress stuff, all right? Because it's just so important, especially in the times we're living in. Stress is everywhere, and the way that we perceive it makes all the difference. So I want to start shifting that for you and helping you to see stress from a different angle in a way that can benefit you rather than harm you. Let me know your thoughts. Cannot wait to speak to you again very, very soon. I will be back in later this week for part two, but drop me a comment below with your last stress and one positive factor that you can take from that, something that you learned, something that it helped you with. Can't wait to speak to you guys later. Bye-bye.